Well, joining me now on a recent study or survey that they put together are John Kelly, he's the co-founder of Puck, and Jonathan Rosen, CEO at the communications company Orchestra. Gentlemen, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having us.
It's
great to see you, Kristen.
John, it's great to see you as well. Back here, of course, in live television. And we'll start with you, John. Tell me more about what this survey found.
Sure. We put out this survey to Puck subscribers. It's a very elite, influential audience across various industries, Washington, Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and Hollywood. And I think there were a number of core findings, some of which were surprising, some of which are probably meet the expectations of your viewers, Kristen. We found that a number of these leaders across businesses expected less regulation. They did expect that there would be some layoffs and some minor dismantling of government. They expected some of it would occur in large agencies. And it seems as though they also expected a fair amount of rollbacks. What's interesting is that there's also, if one's reading between the lines, a broad consensus that Trump would be more pro-business or friendlier probably to the community that's interested in M&A, and that also that there'd be some dislocation as well. And that there are a number of socially liberal business leaders who were absolutely in line with a pro-business administration.
Interesting. Jonathan, I want to bring you into the fold here as well. In terms of market sentiment, how does that factor in, especially as we broadcast here from the stock exchange?
Sure. I think one thing John and I were talking about is, when you break it down by sector, while overall optimism, anticipation for an M&A market to come back to life, two things stuck out for us. A, in certain sectors, media and telecoms, fashion, creative industries, and a little bit in tech, much more worry than optimism. Finance really stood out as an area for optimism. The other thing I'll talk about is just really how quickly sentiment is changing. This survey was fielded about 2 weeks ago, and since then we've seen just a huge sell-off in the market. Comments like what Trump made over the weekend about not ruling out a recession, and so I do think there is this both business leaders holding on to the optimism they came into this administration with, that the floodgates of M&A will open, that animal spirits will be back, and I think increasing concern about the uncertainty we're seeing play out not only through tariffs, but just through market sentiment overall.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because perhaps leading the stock market lower are some of these richly valued technology names, especially in the artificial intelligence space like NVIDIA and other semiconductors. John, what did the survey find in terms of AI adoption among business leaders?
Well, not surprisingly, in the 2 quarters in which we fielded this study, we already see significantly more AI adoption among these leaders and their companies. Obviously, we anticipate that's going to become massively more utilitarian as businesses adopt to it, and I think as also some of the narrative and talking points around artificial intelligence transform along with the industries themselves. Part of why we conceived this project was to really get into the deepest dialogue of executive leadership, which you rarely penetrate even in kind of the most compelling journalism. And unsurprisingly, Kristen, you find that these leaders know that AI is going to be transformational, obviously. Your viewers know this. And they also recognize that it's going to allow for the cost savings, that's going to propel investment in other areas. And we're already seeing this, obviously, in the public market companies in the Magnificent Seven, where so much CapEx is going into building out these large, data storage centers and extraordinary multi-billion-dollar infrastructure, and I think we're seeing the seeds of that germinated in the study.
Mm-hmm. Jonathan, how are leaders using these survey insights to make better decisions amid a time of disruption?
Sure. I think the dark secret of being a CEO or a leader is you don't really have that many people to talk to. And one of the things that the Puck Private Conversation is doing is helping actually bring insights for CEOs from their peers. This is, as John said, a really elite audience of CEOs across finance, tech, media, and I think it's actually incredibly helpful to see how they're thinking about the economy, how they're thinking about M&A, how they're thinking about AI adoption. And I think to John's point about AI, we are seeing just this incredible uptick, even quarter over quarter in the research, but also real fear. Part of the survey, beyond the kind of quantitative results, are open-ended responses where people can type in kind of what they're feeling and what they're thinking. And one thing in the AI section really struck me. A CEO wrote in, that they really feared that the world was either going to divide into companies that fully embrace this, and we're going to get 5 to 10x productivity savings, and companies that can't figure out how to put it into their workflow and are going to get left behind. And I think that it kind of encapsulates the sort of tension right now in the market.
John, are you finding that companies are more or less outspoken in this current environment?
I think that two things are taking place simultaneously to the point where it's almost difficult to parse them. One, I think that there is a broad feeling at the top of major companies that there was probably an overreaction towards corporate advocacy in the last half decade. And so this retrenchment that we're seeing, which is clearly manifested in this study, Jonathan, is right. There's absolutely, some fear that's baked into the research work here. But I think we're also seeing just a normal oscillation as corporate leaders who are probably more comfortable keeping these sort of thoughts to themselves are able to model their companies in that image.
Guys, thanks so much for joining. Really
Thanks.
timely conversation, especially as we see some market volatility underway. John Kelly, co-founder of Puck, and Jonathan Rosen, CEO at Orchestra. We appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank
Kristen.
you. Thanks for having us.